They say the war ends when the last bullet is fired. But for me, it began in silence, long after the gun stopped screaming. My name is Thomas Ellwood. I was 19 when I was sent to Europe, and 43 when I finally began to understand what the war truly did to me. In 1944, I walked through fields soaked in blood, not knowing I was stepping into a second battlefield I'd carry inside me for decades. The worst part wasn't the fear or the noise. It was how normal death became, how easily we laughed, ate, even joked beside corpses. It changes you. It has to. But this story isn't just about the war. It's about what comes after. About the quiet mornings that felt louder than the front lines. About waking up sweating, screaming, not knowing if I was home or back in Belgium. About the day I realized I couldn't outrun ghosts I hadn't even buried. For years I thought survival meant forgetting, pushing it down, smiling through the pain, until I couldn't anymore. This is the story of how I learned to feel again, to forgive, to remember without breaking. It's not a war story. It's a story about coming home. Before the war, I was a quiet boy from Vermont. I fixed watches with my father, chased trout in the streams, and dreamed of distant cities I'd never see. I remember the day I enlisted. My mother cried in the kitchen while I buttoned my uniform. I told her I'd be back by Christmas. I was wrong. They trained us fast, stripped us down, shaved our heads, turned boys into weapons. I made friends quickly. Walt from Chicago, Decker from Alabama. We shared stories, smokes, and promises to look out for each other. We were scared, but we covered it with laughter. That's how boys cope before they become soldiers. The boat to Europe was cold and gray. The sea stretched endlessly, and we filled the silence with card games and letters home. I still have the letter I never mailed, to a girl named Sarah I'd kissed once beneath an elm tree. I was too afraid she'd forget me, or worse, remember. Then came Normandy. We landed under fire, soaked and shaking, crawling through sand that swallowed screams. I remember the smell: salt, smoke, blood, and fear. I lost Walt that day. 1 minute we were moving forward, the next he wasn't. I didn't cry. Not then. War teaches you not to cry, but it doesn't teach you how to stop. Later, after Normandy, I stopped counting days. We moved like shadows through ruined towns, Caen, Saint-Lô, Falaise. Each name meant another friend buried, another part of me gone. I got used to the smell of burning, to the silence that followed an explosion, to the way we avoided eye contact with civilians, ashamed of what the war turned us into. I carried a photo of my family in my breast pocket. It got damp, torn, nearly burned once. But it was my anchor. On nights when I couldn't sleep, I'd take it out, stare at my mother's smile, and pretend I could still feel warmth. Some men found escape in letters, others in whiskey. I found it in routine: clean the rifle, check supplies, watch the horizon. Anything to not think, anything to not feel. I told myself I was fine, just tired, just hungry, just waiting for the war to end. But I wasn't fine. The guilt ate at me. Not just for those we lost, but for surviving, for being the one who made it when better men didn't. I remember holding Decker's hand as he bled out, promising I'd tell his wife he loved her. I never did. I couldn't even say her name without choking. The world called us heroes. But I didn't feel like one. Not then. Not for a long time. When the war finally ended, they shipped us home with medals and handshakes. Strangers cheered, bands played. But I didn't feel joy. I felt hollow. Like I had left something behind I couldn't name, and brought something back I couldn't explain. I moved back into my childhood home, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. The walls were too quiet, the nights too still. I'd wake up sweating, fists clenched, heart racing. My father once found me crouched in the kitchen at 3 a.m., whispering orders to men who weren't there. He didn't understand. No one did. I tried to go back to watchmaking. My hands, once steady under gunfire, now trembled over gears and springs. Customers noticed, so I stopped taking orders. I told people I needed time, but the truth was, I was afraid of breaking something delicate. Again, the hardest part wasn't what I saw. It was what I became. I avoided people. I flinched at loud sounds. I snapped at loved ones for no reason. Some nights I drank to forget. Others I didn't drink, and remembered everything. I thought time would heal me, but time just taught me how to hide better. Until the day I stopped hiding. It happened on a cold morning in February. I was walking down Main Street when a car backfired behind me. Just a sharp crack. Nothing more. But my body reacted before my mind could catch up. I dropped to the pavement, hands over my head, heart pounding like I was back in the Ardennes. People stared. A woman gasped, a child cried, and I felt shame like I'd never known. That night, I sat in the dark, staring at a loaded pistol on my nightstand. Not because I wanted to die, but because I didn't know how to live like this. I was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of flinching. Tired of being a prisoner in my own mind. And then, something broke, but not in the way I feared. I wept. Truly wept. For the first time since Decker. Since Walt. Since I buried the boy from Vermont under 1,000 silent screams. It felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. The next morning, I walked into the VA hospital. Not for a physical, not for medication. I asked to speak to someone. A therapist. I didn't know what I'd say, only that if I didn't, I'd be lost for good. They say real courage is facing what's inside. That was the day I truly began to fight back. The first time I sat across from Dr. Myers, I didn't know where to begin. He was a quiet man, young, probably never heard a bullet whistle past his ear. I judged him too quickly. But he just listened. No clipboard, no clock watching, just presence. And I realized how long it had been since someone really looked at me. At first, I said little, just surface things. Nightmares, headaches, the usual. He nodded gently like he was letting me lead. Then, slowly, I began to speak the names. Walt, Decker, Private Mills, who died calling for his mother. And each time I spoke, it was like loosening a knot in my chest I'd forgotten was there. Some memories came out like broken glass, others like whispers I thought I'd buried forever. But the words helped. Saying them out loud gave them shape, and gave me power over them. He told me what I had was called moral injury, that it wasn't weakness, that my guilt, my grief, they were signs of humanity, not failure. That healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant remembering without being destroyed by it. For the first time, I didn't feel insane. I felt seen. And something else, too. Hope. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days I woke up lighter, like the war had loosened its grip on my chest. Other days, it all came rushing back. A smell, a sound, a dream that felt too real. But Dr. Myers reminded me, progress isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. He taught me grounding techniques, how to pull myself back from the past using breath, texture, sound. I laughed when he first asked me to name 5 things I could see in the room. It felt foolish, but it worked. Slowly, the war stopped invading my mornings. I joined a veterans group. We sat in a circle, rough voices and thick scars, but we understood each other. No masks, no pretending, just raw truth. We didn't always talk about the war. Sometimes we just drank coffee and told fishing stories. Sometimes that was enough. I started walking more. At first just to get out of the house, but soon I found peace in the rhythm of my steps. I'd pause by the river and listen to the water, trying to remember who I was before the uniform. Bit by bit, the man beneath the soldier began to return, and I realized I wasn't broken, I was healing. One spring, I started a garden. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe the therapist's suggestion to find something alive to care for. Or maybe I was just tired of watching the seasons pass without taking part in them. At first, I planted just tomatoes and beans. My hands, once meant for rifles, now trembled in the dirt as I pressed tiny seeds into the earth. It was clumsy, messy, but honest. And it was the first time in years I looked forward to something. There was something holy about it. Watering in the morning, watching sprouts break through soil. It reminded me that life continues, even after devastation. That something fragile can still grow in the shadow of grief. The neighbors began to wave more. A little boy once asked if he could help me pick tomatoes. I said yes, and we worked quietly side by side. He didn't know who I used to be. He only knew me as the man with the garden. That felt good. In that patch of soil, I didn't feel like a veteran, or a patient, or a haunted man. I felt like a human being again, and maybe for the first time, I forgave myself a little. During my therapy, Dr. Myers gave me an assignment: write letters to the men I lost, say the things I never could. At first, I resisted. What good were words to ghosts? But late one night, I sat at my kitchen table and began. Dear Walt, I wrote, I'm sorry I couldn't carry you back. I still hear your laugh when it rains. I hope wherever you are it's quiet. Then Decker, then Mills. Dozens followed. Some were just names I barely knew. Boys who died beside me without a final word. I wrote to them all. I told them what happened after, how I carried them, how they changed me. Some letters were angry, others full of sorrow. But each one felt like releasing a stone I'd been carrying for far too long. I burned them afterward. Not to erase them, but to send them somewhere beyond me, into the sky, into the earth, into peace. I never mailed a letter to Sarah. That chapter felt too far, too fragile. But in my heart, I hoped she lived a good life. One not haunted like mine once was. In those ashes, I found something I didn't expect: closure. Years passed. The nightmares came less often. I still had scars, but they stopped bleeding. I began speaking at local schools, libraries, sometimes even at the VA. Not to relive the war, but to share what came after. The fight to live, the quiet courage of healing. Young people would ask if I was proud of my service. I'd pause, then say, I'm proud I came home, and prouder still that I didn't give up when I got here. I told them war doesn't end with treaties. It ends in living rooms, in bedrooms, in quiet therapy offices, in gardens, in conversations with people who listen. Once, a student asked if I believed in heroes. I said yes, but not the kind on posters. Real heroes are the ones who survive and still choose kindness, who carry pain and don't let it harden them, who reach back into the fire to pull others out. I never thought I'd be a teacher. But maybe that's what healing is, taking the wounds and turning them into lessons, offering others what I once needed most. Not answers, but understanding. Last autumn, I returned to France, to Normandy. It had been decades since I'd last stepped on that sand, but my feet remembered. My chest tightened as I walked the beach where I once lost everything, and began the long road back to myself. Visited the cemetery. Rows upon rows of white crosses stretching into silence. I found Walt's name. Decker's too. I stood there, fingers trembling, heart full. I didn't cry, not out of pride, but peace. I spoke to them, softly. Told them about the garden, the boy who helped pick tomatoes, the quiet mornings I'd grown to love. I told them I was okay now, that the war didn't win. Then I placed a small stone by each of their names. A tradition I'd learned from another vet. A way of saying, I was here. You're not forgotten. As I turned to leave, I felt something shift. Inside, like a long locked door creaking open. I had carried their memory with me for so long, but in that moment, I felt them let go. And I let go too. Not of the past, but of the weight I no longer needed to bear. People often ask me what I think the war taught me. I used to say, nothing but loss. But now with time, I see it differently. The war showed me how fragile we are, how quickly we break, but it also taught me how strong the human spirit can be when it chooses not to stay broken. I've learned that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means learning to carry it with grace. It means waking up each day and choosing life even when it's heavy. Especially when it's heavy. I married late, to a nurse who once sat beside me at the VA. She never asked me to be anything but honest. We planted flowers beside the vegetables. We raised 2 children who never had to learn what gunfire sounds like. That, to me, is victory. Now, in the quiet of the evenings, I sit on the porch and listen to the wind move through the trees. I think of the boys who didn't come home, and I honor them not just with memory, but with the life I've built in their name. This story isn't about war, it's about survival, about the long road home, and about the simple, sacred truth. We are more than what we've endured.